Good afternoon. I'm DeRionne Pollard. I'm president of Montgomery College. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you here today to our first conversation with leadership, an opportunity for your leaders of the college to sit down and respond to questions that have been posed by members of the college community. Now, I hope that this is not the first time that you've seen me on video over the last couple of months, but if it is, I'll say welcome to you and welcome to my home. But more importantly, I want to take an opportunity to catch you up on a few things that we have been doing over the last couple of months and what we've accomplished. Before I do that, I want to give deep appreciation to our colleagues at NCTV, Communications, and Office of the President who have worked tirelessly to make sure that we've had such thoughtful and intentional communications, and their production of this today. I had to say thank you. So before I go too much further, please know I'm deeply grateful to all of you for what you do each and every day to make us better at how we express ourselves to members of the college community, both internally and externally. With that in mind, let me just recap. Many of you remember that we first made the decision to go to remote operations, or as we like to say, emergency teaching, learning, and working before the county because the health and safety of our community is so paramount. We know that members of the college community, both our students and our employees, live and work and move about this county, and we take our role as a part of the public health system very important here. So we recognize that this may be providing some financial impact to families. And because of that, every corner of the college kicked into gear. It was absolutely beautiful to watch just how quickly people did this, whether it be distributing technology, providing food assistance, giving out cash grants. Every sector of the college mobilized in ways that I didn't even know that we could do and do so quickly. This all happened simultaneously. It happened with no one saying, okay, let's direct every part of this. It's just people went about doing the work they know that we need to do as a college, keeping in mind our mission and our students and our colleagues in that. And it just happened. And some of those things that happened, disability student support services took a wave of requests, as did student affairs and academic affairs. I'm going to come back to momentarily. IT and elite, amazing how they just stepped right in and their workloads quadrupled overnight. I mean, these are people who are working 7 days a week, more than 12 hours a day, and doing this for multiple weeks. I heard gossip about our student affairs team that were up at 3 a.m. in the morning, packaging food, packing cars to take it out to students so they would have access to basic needs, security that they wouldn't have right now because many of them were not working. And we know that we also had a number of folks of our college who were distributing PPE, providing and lending the county laptops, that was important. And we consulted with our county on some emergency staging as well. All of this became an important part of what we do. And then you add on top of that, the Montgomery College Foundation, unbelievable, in partnership with our student financial aid area. They stepped up and started delivering very specialized aid to help students who were really in crisis. I mean, the stories the students were sharing and the advocates who spoke on their behalf told tremendous, powerful narratives about what it's like to live in this moment. And as a result of that, while many of us were still packing up our desk, they were putting in processes to help distribute over $625,000 when you look at the foundation combined with college funds. So they help students. And now with the $2.4 million that we received from the CARES, which is the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act funding, the college has distributed more than $3 million of emergency aid to students. This is what we do. We know who our students are. And let me also just comment, as because we know who our students are, I want to give big praise to our faculty. It's been amazing how they have converted in a matter of hours and days courses that were face-to-face into structured emergency remote teaching and learning. Unbelievable. You all are the yeomen of what we do at the college, and thank you for that. I can't name every department or division has done such an exception in this crisis. There have been hundreds of acts of kindness. There were numerous gifts of cash that came from multiple people and multiple organizations. And I think I mentioned the college's own AFSCME contributed $75,000 in EAP funds so students could have those money in need. If that doesn't say community, that doesn't speak to who we are, who our character is, I don't know what is. And I'm tremendously grateful to each and every one of you who have played a role in helping this organization thrive, even in the midst of a pandemic that we didn't anticipate and certainly didn't bring on. What I know for sure is that we also have new partnerships, such as Generation Hope this week, where we're helping underserved students persist through this pandemic. So I'm grateful to be a part of Montgomery College, and I hope that you are as well. Now, you all send us lots of questions because there are lots of things that we're doing well during this crisis, lots of things we're still working on, and opportunities for growth and improvement, and then just lots of things that we just simply haven't addressed in very intentional ways that people need to hear about. So I thought, in the spirit of our face-to-face town meeting, hall meetings, which we haven't had in some time, that we would have this a conversation with leadership. And this is an opportunity for me to tag in a few people who work with me every day to help lead this organization. So I've asked our 4 senior vice presidents to join me. These are folks who I care about deeply, who are wonderful colleagues, but more importantly, they have a profound sense of mission about this organization. So let me welcome Dr. Sanjay Rai, Ms. Donna Shenna, Dr. Monica Brown, and Mr. Dave Sears. And they're here to really be the brains and muscles, because at some point there are going to be a lot of things I'm going to say I don't have the answer to, and I'm going to be tagging them in because they have worked tirelessly. And let me just give them big praise. You all don't know oftentimes what happens behind the scenes, but I'm getting emails and messages from them in the middle of the night, all day long. I'm seeing and talking with them on the weekends, and many of them have also been experiencing and managing personal challenges as well. So just from the deepest part of who I am, I'm honored to work with this senior team. So thank you for that. In the spirit of that, we've got a lot of questions and we only have a limited amount of time. In fact, I think we had over 40 questions that came in. Several of you all wrote the same questions and we tried to cluster them together to try to respond to them. If you don't see or hear your question responded to, please check the Resilient MC page, because there will be FAQs there that will respond to the questions you have. We also have answered some of these questions before, so we'll make sure that we put those out there so people can have that information. But you can see if you go to resilientmc at montgomerycollege.edu, you'll see some of those questions there. So with that, we're going to go and get started. And the first question that was posed to us is one that's probably on the top of mind for many people. What will be the deciding factors to when the college reopens? So with that, there's probably 2 major points that we're going to be thinking about in this space when we think about when the college should reopen. State and local authorities, we are always aligned with what they're telling us and the direction that they provide. And for us, we certainly even recognize in the state of Maryland, our governor has given us a set of directives, as well as in Montgomery County, our local jurisdiction does as well. So they're looking at local trends as it relates to infections, hospitalizations. They're wanting to see decreases over a studied amount of time in that space. And then we're also looking and very thoughtfully listening to our Corona advisory team that I assembled right at the start of this crisis, who are giving us very specific interpretations, looking at CDC, World Health Organizations, a plethora of data every day. They are looking at materials in highly systematic ways to help inform that. So we are also just, Montgomery County, still under a stay-at-home order that was executive order that was produced by the county executive and then supported by and approved by the county council last Friday. So we're following that. And then a follow-up question that someone poses very similar to that: will employees with underlying health issues have the option of continuing remote teaching, advising, and working? So one of the things I want to encourage you to do on the Resilient MC page, because we are now transitioning from the crisis of coronavirus to the resilience of being able to live in this environment right now. If you go to the Resilient MC page, You will see two plans there. One is a roadmap to resilient transformation, which is our roadmap as a college of the things that we will be doing over the next several months to respond. But you will also see MC Raptor's health and safety plan. And this is something that's been developed by our CAT team. And they're very deliberate in helping to lay out a series of things that we're doing to put in place. So right now, I would encourage people who are vulnerable to work at home. On a first priority for us is health and safety. Our CAT team is going to continue to advise us on that. And then we're also giving some very thoughtful insight and thought and reflection to this about our HR STEM team. They are going to be involved in with the policy. Facilities is involved with cleaning protocols. All of these things are being put in place as we start to anticipate when we might move back to a face-to-face work. Because as I tell people, we're not off, we're working. I can tell you now, I'm probably working somewhat harder than I have been because it's a very different environment for us. But at the same time, we have to be recognizing that our goal over time when it's health and safety able to do so, moving back into our buildings and our campuses. Donna, is there anything that you might want to add as a follow-up to this?
Sure. As Dr. Pollard indicated, our facilities staff are involved in the Corona Advisory Team, and they have already started assessing what a phased comeback is going to look at, keeping in mind the importance of social distancing, barriers that may be needed to put in place for people that are one-to-one services. Additionally, we are arranging with our existing custodial cleaning supplies contractor for training for our building service workers and our operations and maintenance staff. And this training actually provides a certification for our employees and also mobile job aids so that any changes in the existing protocols, they'll have a job aid with them to make sure that they're doing and reminded of the cleaning protocols that we will be putting in place. So I think that's very important to know that we are paying attention to this. There will be a very deep cleaning of the campus. It's been empty for quite some time now, and so a deep cleaning will be required, as well as making sure that our staff are trained in any protocols related to the pandemic and the virus.
Thank you so much, Donna. And I think one of the other things I've heard Donna and her team talk a lot about in the CAT group have really been giving us some clear indications that we have to approach this is the issues around social and physical distancing, space determinations. I know several of us work in small or tight spaces. What do we have to do in that? Looking at possible redesign, how we utilize that space, classroom space, conference space, excuse me, lobbies, restrooms, cafeterias, reception areas, gymnasiums, all of these things have to be accounted for. So I had someone send me an email saying, hey, what are we doing about this? I said, oh, that's on a list of a lot of things that we're thinking about as it relates to it. And then at the same time, thinking about workplace distancing, plexiglass, assessing the need for barriers where appropriate. All of these things are part of the work that the CAT group is doing, and they're bringing in our facilities team to help think these through. And what are the cost implications? And that's also a very important part of this. All of these things are additions to what we have planned in our budget for this year. So we're very thoughtful about how do we do this and procure these things in a timely manner so that when people do start returning to campus, we have them when needed. So I'm going to go to the second question. Will staff have flexibility with telework if they're not able to physically return to work because they have children at home and feel comfortable or uncomfortable sending them to daycare? So I think that this is really related to the first question in a lot of ways. Like many of you have a child at home, I'm just waiting for him to bound in here to tell me good morning and get his morning hug or kiss in the midst of this recording. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that we're all adapting. This is something that none of us were prepared for. We know that this is a lot of pressure to perform at home, pressure to be present with your family, pressure to perform for work. It is something that none of us anticipated. My philosophy all along has been the expectation that supervisors are working with employees before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic. Now, this is a part of what good supervisory management skills are. And we know that there are many extraordinary circumstances that none of us envisioned, and we have to be adaptable. We have to sit down and figure out what this looks like. So I'm proud of the work that's been done. In fact, that's kind of amazing to me to see the amount of engagement and thoughtful leadership that's taking place and self-advocacy that's also taking place. What are we going to be doing going forward? I think that's a really powerful question. For now, we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. We're going to make it work. We're going to figure it out. We're going to be adaptable. We're going to be flexible. And we're going to evolve and transition to whatever this is going to look like from this moment on. I will share with you that I do worry about the strain that this is putting on a lot of our employees. I've heard about concerns about mental health. I know our STEM area is thinking about how we can, STEM is thinking about how we can provide additional support to employees. So I know that that's something that we're thinking about, and we have resources available. So I hope that people are taking advantage of them and listening to them. Now, one of the things I think is important, as I said, is about adaptation. So we're going to continue to do that. But we also are stewards of investments of public dollars in the organization. So we have to be very thoughtful about how we're going to keep the bottom line of protecting jobs. That's important to me. I've articulated and actually was speaking with the College Council earlier this week and talked about the idea of protecting jobs, advocating for our budget, and keeping people healthy and safe are my top 3 priorities right now. So what that looks like is going to be important for us. So we're actively advocating around our compensation packages. We're actively advocating around the need for our employees to be engaged and working so they can contribute to the lifeline of the county. So as a result of that, we're all going to have to figure out what adaptation means in the results of this, but more importantly, be thoughtfully engaged. Because right now, we just simply don't know. We're trying to figure it out as we go along. Donna, is there anything you might want to add from an HR STEM perspective?
So I want the college community to know that the staff in Human Resources Strategic Talent Management, they are there now as they always have been. And we encourage employees who are struggling to reach out to them. We have expanded access to our FSAT program. If anyone needs to talk to anyone, that's available to all employees and students now. As well as the normal chain of support that we have in HR STEM. And I think that's important to know. We will be figuring out, as Dr. Pollard has talked, what that transition looks like, what the phase looks like. But there also will be individuals who have their individual needs, and they will be addressed with the individuals by the HR STEM staff. There are things that we can deal with across the board, but we recognize that there will be many, many situations where we have to look at those on an individual need, and we are prepared to do that.
Thank you, Donna. I think you really capture this idea, and this is an interesting balance we have to have. As we've articulated it in the roadmap, we want to work to protect fiscally sustainable operations while maintaining robust stewardship of Montgomery College employees. I know that we can do both things at the same time, but it also means we're going to think differently and be much more flexible and adaptable. And I'm really proud of the work I see happening at HR STEM in that space. Let's go to the next set of questions that really focus about teaching and learning. And a lot of it is some of the terminology that we've been using. One question that came in and said, what is structured remote learning versus what we've been doing now? And I love that question because it talks to the terminology. One of our colleagues often says, we got to stop using education ease. I'm like, well, sometimes you got to use education ease because we're an educational institution. And as a result of that, we've introduced different language. We've used some of these terms without necessarily specifying. It's been evolving, that definition, because again, the space has been evolving. The college provided tools for our faculty to continue to engage with students, and we've been doing that through emergency remote teaching through the rest of the spring semester. But it is a different environment. So structured remote teaching and learning, I think, is a tad bit more sophisticated. And it also speaks to, I think, some very different intents around some of the competencies and approaches the faculty will be bringing to that. With that, I'm going to ask Dr. Rai if you'd like to chime in on this, because I know that you have spent a lot of time, many hours working with your colleagues, including Dr. Brown, to talk about this. So please.
Certainly, Dr. Pollard. Thank you, everyone. And uh, so, emergency remote teaching was about continuity of instruction. We went into remote format within 2 days of time. And faculty and staff have done phenomenal work. And I want to thank everyone who have helped and contributed in that process. But in these 8 weeks of remote instruction, we have learned a lot from faculty and from students. And based on their input, a structured remote teaching plan has been developed. This plan focuses on ensuring MC quality is built into every class, and students have a consistent experience as they navigate from one class to the other class. This course format incorporates a robustly populated Blackboard site with a clear plan of when and how content will be delivered throughout the course. For example, some may be in synchronous lecture, other may be via third-party supplementary video, all kind of course learning outcome, all connected to course learning outcomes. Course content is shared via video conferencing such as Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, and the course is systematically and intentionally planned regarding when faculty will interact with the students and if the class returns or to enter to face delivery, the course can continue seamlessly when moving on campus.
Hmm. Thank you, Dr. I think that's a very thoughtful, and for those of you who may not have seen that or heard that, those definitions before, we're going to actually have them on the Resilient MC website. If you see them under the student a panel, there's some very good definitions there so people can understand, actually student and employees right now it's under, because I think it's important to understand the intentionality about that. And I think there's a follow-up that comes from that naturally is one of the questions, Dr. Rye, and I'll take a stab at it and see if you or Dr. Brown want to add something to it. If structured is going to make students go to mandatory assigned Zoom lectures, how will students with children at home be able to do this? Now, certain professors give lectures with pre-record and allow the student the freedom to listen to it. On the assigned lecture day, if the students have questions, you can get on Zoom and ask them, but it's not mandatory to get on a Zoom lecture. So I think this is really another great example of how the college is really working it out as it goes. I want to encourage our faculty while we're under our stay-at-home orders to be as flexible as they can with these scenarios. And I know they already are. I see them on Twitter and on some of our social media where they are doing things that go beyond the call of duty, and they're very deliberate about trying to build in that flexibility and that awareness about the student experience as well. Many of them know how complex, they're living complex existences, so they're being very deliberate about that as well. I know trying to work and learn and teach and do all these things while you have a child is challenging. I've had to ask Miles to pipe down sometimes and may have to do even during this recording. So it's important to know that we're all aware of those dynamics and are trying to be as thoughtful and intentional about that. So I think there are some pluses and minuses. There's some spaces we're going to have to continue to grow in this. Keeping in mind the college did not create the pandemic, but we're developing a response. And we're trying to be as deliberate and excellent as we can in these spaces. I want to see if there's anything that Dr. Rye or Dr. Brown might want to add further about that.
So, Dr. Pollard, just as in face-to-face classroom, faculty determine how to present material and in what order to achieve learning outcomes. First, I will encourage the students to reach out to their faculty, but also know that our faculty are going through elaborate training to address exactly those kinds of things. And that training actually started with the professional week when we brought a national expert, Dr. Linder, to do a webinar with our faculty and staff on the same issue. And she touched on exactly these kinds of issues and talked about trauma-informed pedagogy. So teaching students meeting learning outcomes while understanding the surroundings that students have at this moment. So I want to assure students that faculty will be engaged and they will pay attention to the students' who are going through this situation and learning at the same time.
Excellent. Dr. Brown, anything you might want to say about that?
I will echo what has been said and also encourage students, as we've done during this time, to reach out if there's a concern. We're all in this together. We're here to support you. We encourage you to persist. And if you find challenges along the way, reach out to your faculty, talk to them. And if you need additional support, reach out to someone else who can assist you and help you persist. We want you to be successful, and that is our ultimate goal.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I'm going to go to the next question because it kind of follows in the same thread about academic delivery. It says, if we already signed up for a class with lab for summer 2, and then the school decides to change classes to online, the classes won't be dropped, right? For example, Bio 101 with lab. This is the last class I need to take before I graduate this summer. Congratulations. And so hopefully these lab classes aren't terminated if classes are made online. Dr. Rai, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, before I answer that question, going back to the earlier question also, students should know that all student support is available in remote format. All our learning centers, mathematics tutoring centers, science tutoring center, writing centers, they're all available in the remote format. And also achieving the promise, embedded coaching, mentoring, everything is available to students in the remote format. And to the answer, the question, Biology 101 with lab, most certainly. The class is offered, and our faculty have been involved in the development of online labs. These efforts were stepped up during the spring semester. Obviously, the challenges are there, but faculty working with software developers have created some fantastic online labs, complete with tools for making measurements, data collections, and analysis, just as one example. In the spring, Montgomery College biology faculty worked with the company to develop ways for students to do biology and microbiology labs that involve identifying an unknown. That said, when we return to campus, even if it is until spring 2021, we are discussing ways for students who completed a lab course to get some hands-on lab experience. This would be voluntary for students. Someone graduating may have moved on, but we continue to work with four-year partners to ensure that online labs transfer. Where an accrediting body sets standards and requirements like nursing and others, we are working with those organizations also to ensure that the experience students have will meet those standards.
So it's fair to say then, Dr. Rai, that the college will be offering lab courses or classes with labs this fall?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And I appreciate that because I know that a lot of students are interested in this and I love the previous question in such a way that for graduation, we want students to be able to complete. It's very important. A deep coupling that our institution has with our transfer institutions, with our accrediting agencies, we're taking that direction. But I hope you heard one part of what Dr. Rai said. We have exceptional faculty who are working with their lab coordinators and have put together remarkable learning experiences that will replicate what you would have had in a face-to-face experience, you will have in an online environment. And that agility, that flexibility that our faculty and our staff are demonstrating are the same agility and flexibility we need for our students to demonstrate, because this is a part of the future of the world of work. Things change rapidly and the expectations and environment change rapidly. So thank you for that. Let me go to the next question. Emily writes, I'm writing to inquire about clarification if there will be refunds for fees and partial tuition payments. Now, I think this is an interesting question. I'm going to ask Dr. Brown to initially respond, and then I'm going to come up with some background information I think will hopefully give a broader context and may tag in Ms. Shinna as well.
Yes. So refunds are assess and determine based on established drop and withdrawal guidelines. And I want to add that that's based on the individual beyond our established guidelines. There are individuals with circumstances that may warrant a refund, and I encourage students to reach out to us, to contact us. We're accessible to you, even in this remote environment, if there are extenuating circumstances that would warrant consideration for a refund beyond our established guidelines.
So one of the questions I've heard quite a bit about, and I shouldn't say quite a bit, a few who have written me, and actually when I had my popcorn with Pollard, some students asked this idea about, what about fees? You know, we're being charged a transportation fee, but right now we're not parking on campus, we're not using the shuttle. And because I'm not a high finance person, you won't get a high finance answer. What you will get from me is a very thoughtful, hopefully explanation, and I'll ask Ms. Shin in a minute to tag in on this as well. What we know is that, and I'll use the transportation fee as an example of that, fees are set usually to support both an operational function in many cases, as well as long-term planning that the college does, operations as well. So our transportation fee, while it also supports the shuttle and it helps provide salaries for folks who may work directly in managing our parking lots, it also is used to help support the cost of bonds that we have as it relates to certain structures that we built, in particular parking structures and so forth. As a result of that, in order for the college to secure the bonding or the loans that we need in order to be able to do that work, we have to be able to have a repayment mechanism for those bonds. And if we don't have that repayment mechanism, we aren't able to go out to get those bonds that we need to, for those long-term structures that we can pay back over time. So as it relates to this, the transportation fee supports more than just the parking lots right now and more than just the shuttle. It supports other obligations that the college has towards its long-term finance model within the institution, as well as we're still providing, some people ask about our comprehensive fee and others, we're still providing robust student life activities online and in a structured environment. I encourage you to take advantage of those. If you haven't, it's absolutely amazing, for wellness to dance parties and other things they're doing, all the way to this idea of really helping provide students with some great support academically and emotionally. So when you think about fees, if you see them as transactional, as only affecting this moment right now, you miss the fact that it has a greater contribution to the college's budget. The technology fee is another example of that. Clearly, we are expending more now in technology than what this fee was actually intended for up front. So there's a give and take that we have to play and balance in this space as we think about both the short term or the immediate budget, as well as the long-term fiscal plan for the institution as we think about multiple years. Donna, I don't know if there's anything you might want to add to that as someone who has stewardship of the finances of the institution.
I think you explained it in the absolute perfect way. I think when we see fee, we think of it, as you said, as a transactional function, but it goes much, much beyond that. What I will also say, and it gets back to what Dr. Rai has said, Dr. Brown has said, and you have said as well, Dr. Pollard, is that we care. We really care about our students, we care about our faculty and our staff. And if any employee, any faculty, staff member, student is struggling to deal with something, we have the people here that will help you. You just need to reach out to them. So as Dr. Brown said, reach out to your faculty member as an employee, faculty or staff, reach out to HR. We know what we know. More importantly, we don't know what we don't know, and we really want to be there to help everyone that is really striving to work through this pandemic. We have the resources to help you. We're standing by to be able to do that for you.
Thank you, Donna. Let's talk a little bit about ways we are helping students. We had a question that says, what is the process for the CARES Act funding? After completing the application, is there a time frame to wait? What should we expect in terms of after submitting the application? So the college has contributed $2.4 million in CARES funding for the first batch of the emergency funding spring to our Pell Grant students. We have several more applications that are out there for the second round, and I'll ask Dr. Brown to chime in and give us some
Certainly.
perspective on how that process goes.
Yes, thank you. Students who are receiving CARES Act funding are sent an email explaining what it is and why they are receiving it. When we award additional financial aid, an emailed award letter is also sent to the student. Students can call or email the financial aid office if they're concerned about the balance on their accounts, as we've heard that as a concern, or if they have questions about how long their application has been submitted and they're waiting to hear back from us. Please contact us. You may call or send an email to the financial aid office. Thank you.
Very good. So students who are not eligible, though, for CARES funding, because there are federal guidelines about who is eligible and who is not eligible for these funds, particularly Dreamers and F1 students are not eligible. These decisions are made by the U.S. Department of Education. They're not made by the college. As you know, the college has a long-term and long-time commitment to both of those populations of students. And I would even say the state of Maryland, because its commitment to Dreamers as well, has had that for quite some time. But the Department of Education has no flexibility around these issues. So as a result of that, the Montgomery College Foundation has been exceptional in trying to respond to the needs of this student population. Dave, would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The foundation's been phenomenal in helping these students. The foundation has distributed more than $170,000 of aid. Of that, $625,000, and a lot of that money did go to DACA, Dreamer, and international students. And we've done over 1,400 awards to students. In many cases, we've awarded a student more than once. We've been able to provide a computer. We've been able to provide, and it's just been a tremendous effort by our foundation staff with the financial aid office. And at this point, we've exhausted all the funds that we had available for this fiscal year for DACA, Dreamer, and international students around student emergency assistance. But FY21 is just around the corner on July 1st, and we'll be doing our best to continue to raise money. And as a final note, I just want to thank over 100 employees and retirees have given tens of thousands of dollars towards student emergency assistance, and just want to say thank you to them.
Thank you, Dave, for reminding us that the new fiscal year starts soon, as well as what opportunities that may exist. Although I do want to also be very cautious. I know the foundation has had a deep commitment to supporting students and the college, but these times also affect their ability to do that. I know we've looked at the returns that may be coming in on endowments. So obviously this idea of current funds that people might want to provide are important to help these populations of students. So if you're willing to do so, please reach out to Dave or Joyce Matthews and the foundation, and they will be happy to make you a new donor to the foundation or enhance your giving to the foundation thus far.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Pollard. I would just add that you can give a cash donation, check donation, you can do an online donation, but you can even give in-kind donations. Like AstraZeneca gave us 68 computers. We had the Link group that gave us over 60 gift cards for food. And so there's different ways to give, and we encourage that.
Thank you for that. Let me stay on CARES because we had another question. I think Dr. Benitez sent this in. Students have received funds from the CARES Act and are confused though. While I understand that messaging was sent about this from Dr. Pollard, I suggest that there needs to be notification to students as they receive the funds and why. Many students have shared that their student account is reading a negative balance of negative $500. In their world, online banking and so forth, a negative means a deficit. However, this is not the case for reading their Montgomery College student account. So some clarity is needed. And thank you, Dr. Rashaw, for reminding us of this, because this is an important thing about how our accounting system or our systems may not reflect the logic that those who are on the receiving end think about that. Dr. Brown, you want to respond to that?
Sure, and I appreciate the question and the need for clarification. So I'm going to try to explain it a bit more for our students and for employees, because we're all trying to understand what the CARES funding is and how students may access it. So students who are receiving CARES funding are sent an email explaining what it is and why they're receiving it. So that distinguishes it from any other aid that they may receive. Financial aid is also still awarding other assistance. If students look at their student accounts on MyMC, they can see specific amounts that are credited and what they are. The credit to the MC student account happens first, and direct deposits and checks go out the following week. When it happens, the negative balance goes away. It's not negative, it is a positive credit of funds waiting to go out to the student. The credit or application of funds to the MC student account has to occur first, and then the business office disperses the money in the form of a check or direct deposit to the student's bank account, depending on whether or not the student set up direct deposit. When we award additional financial aid, an emailed award letter is also sent to the student, and students can call or email the financial aid office if they're concerned about the balances on their accounts, if they need further explanation, or there's something that they don't quite understand. Again, I encourage you to please reach out, contact financial aid by email or by phone.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Again, following up on the theme that Ms. Shenna said earlier, we're here to help and support where clarity is needed. Please ask. We're very happy to provide that. And if there's also an opportunity for us to communicate more effectively, we take that and we learn. So thank you for that. I have a question here that comes from Maureen Elder. She says, my question relates to phasing in faculty and staff into buildings on campus. I work at the Paul Peck Academic and Innovation Building on the Germantown campus, and I'm curious how a specific number of people allowed per building will be monitored, since the second floor of this building is dedicated to county employees. So to know, the college and the county will be following a set of protocols for building capacity based on guidance from the federal, state, and certainly from the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. If you take a look at the CAT Health and Safety Plan, you'll see that in different phases of the return to work, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, there may be specific guidelines about spacing and the number of things as it relates to people who are in small spaces. There may be plexiglass installed. We may move into this idea of having certain employees come on one day versus another, a staggered return. So all of these things are being explored right now. It is very much contingent upon guidelines that we receive from the federal, state, and county health departments. One good example, though, of a mixed-use building that you're in is going to be interesting, because a college and the county are clearly going to be very much aligned in terms of how they respond to their expectations for employees in terms of space. But I think this is a good example of some of the complexity that we're trying to anticipate and respond to, because it is a moving target. Just when you think you've got it figured out, something new comes into the space and allows us to have to rethink that. One of the guiding principles, though, that we have, and you'll see in the roadmap, is that listen to, and I'll quote this, our students, employees, alumni, stakeholders, decision makers, business leaders, nonprofit partners, and many others to support the rebound of our community. So in order for us to do that, this is going to be a process. It's going to be a process that we may get right in some areas. There's going to be a process that we're going to get wrong. And one of the things that I keep telling people is we listen and we respond. And if we're going to fail, fail fast, and we're going to come back with a better solution, because we're all living in this same moment together. That's something I can promise. We're going to listen and we're going to respond. And you may have noticed that we're really trying to be very thoughtful about this communication. I'm communicating a lot. I know a couple times a week, 3 times a week, I'm sending something out now. I was doing it daily. We have each of our senior vice presidents is being very deliberate in that. I know that many of them have very structured communication. Others are doing it informally, one-on-one. So I'm hopeful that each of you will spend the time to do that. And I also, there's a lot of information coming out. Even some of the questions that we got in preparation for this session, we'd already answered in other places, but it's a lot. I get it. So we're going to continue to put those on the FAQs. If there's something that we haven't responded to, let me know. We'll make sure we get that out there. But also, I would encourage you all, before you say, oh, they haven't spoken to this, check it out in some different spaces and see if we've actually responded to it. It just may have been a couple weeks ago, and it's been some time. Donna, anything you want to add about that as we think about employees coming back into different spaces?
Sure. As Dr. Pollard indicated, we are getting significant guidance from the state and the county, but we're also monitoring professional organizations within the higher education space, because there's great guidance coming in there about coming back on campus and what schools are doing for social distancing, classroom arrangements. Our college architects are already looking at that, what that will look like. But I also think this question that Maureen has sent in really is a good example of, it's our people who are closest to the operations that see these unique circumstances. And so it's very important to bring those questions forward, or to tell us, you may just know of something you want to bring to our attention. And that's why the Resilient MC website is such a value to us as the leaders of the college, is getting this information, getting these questions, because it really keeps us laser focused on what we need to do and pay attention to as we plan our return to our work on the campuses and in the office buildings.
Well said, well said. Can a student, is the next question, be refused face-to-face teaching with signs of illness if the student insists in attending? I think that's a really great question. I'm going to try and answer it in a couple of parts, and may see, ask Dr. Brown and Dr. Why if they'd like to contribute to that. I think first, the health and safety of our students and employees have been the guiding principle that I've tried to operate with under the last several weeks and months as we moved into this pandemic. If you haven't noticed this already, we're all working deliberately about communication and really trying to educate ourselves so that we all know what we can and should expect in these environments. Keeping in mind, not going away anytime, and we're all trying to figure it out as we go, and we're going to need each other in order to do that. What I've seen thus far in the college's response is that people are approaching things with care and compassion. We're a thoughtful, we're a caring community. And I have yet to see places where folks are saying, I'm unwilling or unable or refuse to do the types of things that are needed to keep us safe. That's important. We know that we have vulnerable populations in the midst of our college community, whether it be student, employees, or visitors. So we all are a part of a caring community, a just community. So we want to take care of each other to the extent we can. We also don't want to make assumptions about people. Just because we think they're sick, they may not be. Many of you may have noted even in this conversation today, Dr. Brown and I were chatting earlier before we got started that I've got a little cough, she's got one. It is allergy season as well. So we're very deliberate about making sure that we don't make assumptions about people who present as ill, but it may not be what we think the presentation is. I think if we're going to practice radical inclusion, part of that means we empower people to change their lives. That means we're very thoughtful about how we go about communicating and giving information and education to people to do that. I think our CAT group has been very deliberate in this type of work. They're helping us to really think about public safety and training in public safety in very deliberate ways. We're looking at how we craft a culture of compliance, a culture of enforcement. Compliance means that I see myself as a part of taking care of you, and you're taking care of me. And as a result of that, let me empower you and give you the tools in order to be effective in responding to these types of situations. So we're combining intensive education with highly effective protocols around public safety to hopefully produce the environment where we all feel healthy and safe when we come to the college campus, and that we're all on the same page on this. If there are times when someone's public health, when the public health is being threatened by someone's individual behavior, there may be a cause for us to look at the student code of conduct or the employee code of conduct to look at strategies about how to address that. But I think the big thing for us is that we want to continue to listen and learn. There is something remarkable about being a member of the Montgomery College community in Montgomery County, Maryland. I believe that there is more hope about trying to keep us safe and being deliberate about that. So if you look at our guiding principles in the roadmap, we very clearly say adaptation. We want to make sure that we are protecting each other and the mission of the college. And that means that we're going to have to learn and be intentional about how we take care of each other in that space. Dr. Brown or Dr. Rye, anything you might want to add in that conversation?
Dr. Pollard, I will only add that we have practiced this in every situation, whether it's flu season or any time that we have concerns about people coming to work or coming to school and they're not feeling well. I think we have to keep encouraging people to take care of themselves, and by doing so, to also model that for students by practicing that as employees of the college and encouraging students to practice it as well. I think students need to be encouraged to stay home if they're not feeling well. And I think we continue to practice what we've practiced in the past. As we move forward, we encourage students to do what is in the best interest of their health and the health of the college community, and we also model that behavior for them.
Dr. Rod,
I will add. I will add one thing that we will be thoughtful and careful, but we are making decisions based on a lot of unknowns and uncertainty, right? So first, that we made the decision that our entire summer offerings will be in the remote format. That was keeping health and safety of students and all employees in mind. And we made the same decision for fall semester, also starting the semester in a remote format. So I think as situation change, as more information is available, I think our practices will become more clear at that point.
Yeah, let me, because I think this next question, I'll also ask Dave and Don if they want to chime in on it, because this next one kind of speaks to the same idea. All of us have a bombardment of information that's coming in on social media accounts, and Jill Cronford asked this. My question concerns the reports on the news and lots of examples on her social media feed of individuals who are refusing to wear a mask on the grounds that mandatory masks infringe on free speech, and objections are growing as a result of some of our political discourse. My question is how MC plans to handle situations where students, faculty, or staff refuse to wear masks. As a faculty member, I'm especially concerned about a situation where a student won't wear a mask in my classroom and how to handle that. I think that, as I said, the question is similar to the one that was previous. And right now we're in the midst of developing, I think, some excellent guidelines for conditions under which employees and students can return to the buildings and to come to campus to work. And we'll be developing some appropriate responses and procedures for non-compliance as well. Once we decide on this set of criteria, I think as an organization, we're going to have some public energy around educational campaigns. You all might remember Dr. Riley Hart, who was a speaker a few months ago here from Amarillo College. And during this pandemic, they've kept one building, a particular lab open on this campus because of the poverty and the guidelines within their state there, to be able to have students come in and use a computer lab, and he's been manning it and taking temperature checks every day and having very thoughtful conversations with students when they come in. I'm not volunteering to come in and do temperature checks. I told Dr. Larry Hart, he set a high standard for all of us in terms of what we will do. But what I do know is that we want to be able to communicate to members of the college community and those who visit us, both student, employee, and visitors, that this is a safe place. We are committed to that. We believe in radical inclusion, and that means we want to have an environment where everyone feels safe when they come on that campus. So we want to empower our students to change their lives. That's our commitment. That is through education and training. And we want our employees to feel stewarded and to feel that they're valued. Part of that also means we provide education and training. And that also means that under certain conditions, if things are not being followed, we have appropriate protocols to respond. As I said, our emphasis is going to be on compliance. And then we will also be having our public safety officers and others be very thoughtful about how they can help guide us in these spaces and what we need to do in TAP. Related to that, we also have our student code of conduct. We also have an employee code of conduct. And there's certain things that are last step measures that we can implement. But our intent is really to help privilege the idea of education and training as a way to make people understand that they are participants and members of a community that cares about them, and we need them to also care about each other. Mr. Spears, Ms. Shunna, anything you might want to add on that?
I would just say that it really is about individual and public safety, and it is one of education and awareness and not coming in with a heavy hand of enforcement. That's not what it's about. We believe that if we can educate and raise awareness about why certain protocols must be in place, we have an educated student body, employee body, then we're all going to be safer because of that. So that's the approach that we are taking.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to that we'll have a very assertive communications campaign about the return. We've already purchased masks for our employees, and we'll have information about how they'll be able to access those when they return. Also, a lot of signage. The creative services team has worked with the Corona advisory team to create signage, not just in English, but in other languages, so that we make sure that we're communicating effectively to all parts of our population. And the signage will be, and the communications will be off multiple platforms, whether it's social media, the gateway signage you see on each of the campuses, each of the college locations. And just to add to this is NCTV has done a phenomenal job of working with the county on a Corona Montgomery television channel, which continues to broaden that awareness about what to do during this pandemic.
Thank you. That's excellent. Good things to know.
Dr. Hall, can I just add one thing? I want to assure that our facilities staff, our building service workers, operation maintenance, the grounds, whatever protective equipment is needed, personal protective equipment, that will be supplied to them by the college.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Let's transition to a set of questions that some folks are asking, because it speaks to issues about revenue and so forth. What impact will decline in enrollment pose to Montgomery College? How much of a concern to the administration is the decline in revenue? Well, first, I want to say that right now we're not going to assume a decline in enrollment. Your question is a very important one, in that most of us, I hope, know that the college has three sources of revenue, or three dominant sources of revenue. The first being the county, which provides about half of the college's budget. Secondly, being student tuition, which provides roughly a third, a little bit under a third, and then the remainder comes from the state. So as a result of that, we do want to be very thoughtful, and not just senior administration should be thinking about, or administration should be thinking about enrollment. We all play a role in enrollment. But I'm very happy about what we're seeing thus far, because we've been very deliberate in treating our students both as learners and as consumers. And as a result of that, the information that we've been putting out about how we are providing care for them when they come on campus, getting information out about instruction, talking about our plans and the continuation of our strategy from this summer into the fall, I think is starting to pay it forward. Dr. Rye, I know you love talking about enrollment, so talk to me about what you're seeing so far.
Yeah, I like talking about enrollment because it involves numbers. How can I not like it? But as you said, Dr. Pollard, I mean, enrollments are looking very, very strong, unbelievably strong. Summer session one, 89% of all our seats are already filled. And this is after we added additional 80 sections in the last 10 days or so. So summer one, very, very strong. Summer two, as of this morning, 63% of our seats are already filled for summer session two. And summer session two enrollment now is already equals to our summer session two enrollment last year. So we are going to exceed that within a couple of days, and we still have long time. I will also take this opportunity to talk a little bit about fall enrollment. As you know, our fall enrollments started, registration started Monday. And by Wednesday morning, within a couple of days, 12% of the seats were already filled. So, already summer looking strong. Fall looks like it's in a very good start. And this fall, we are also very pleased to welcome 300 early college students in various academic programs on all three campuses. These will be full-time students who have just finished grade 10 in MCPS, and they'll be coming to college in fall, and they have not registered yet. So all this will add to our fall semester enrollment as well.
Thank you. So I think what you can hear, because we know we want to give Dr. Rai all the opportunity to talk about numbers when he can, is that we are doing fairly well as it relates to planning for summer and fall. Just immensely pleased and certainly grateful to everyone who's working in this space, because we know right now this is in their favor. Ultimately, because enrollment is one of our revenue sources, we need to be very thoughtful about protecting our mission and protecting our employees and making sure that we're all actively engaged around enrollment, because that's a direct correlation about that. Now, the other thing that I would offer to you, though, is that enrollment is not the only thing that's important. As I said, that's one of the three parts of our enrollment, of our revenue picture. But what's important about this, though, is that we are a part of a larger ecosystem. So I'm going to encourage you, those of you who are not tracking and paying attention, we need to be doing this. And those of you who are paying attention, I want you to start decoding what you're seeing very thoughtfully. One of our guiding principles, and you see this in the roadmap, says work to protect fiscally sustainable operations while maintaining robust stewardship of MC employees. That's a excuse me, that's a priority. There are a number of unknowns right now that we have to be very thoughtful about. In particular, we need to be cognizant that we have to keep our enrollment up, but 80% of the college's budget is compensation benefits for employees. So we know that we don't exist in isolation. There is a lot going on right now in our county as they're trying to preserve employment, but being very thoughtful that revenue may not be coming into the county as thoughtfully or as planned as it had been. And I also know that unemployment adds stress, major stress to the county as we look about those revenues, and certainly thinking about taxes as they come in. So we have to think about how we operate within the larger ecosystem. If you're following, the county council has already offered perspectives about collective bargaining agreements that are between the county agencies and county unions. So we are paying very clear attention to that. We're also paying very clear attention to revenue projections in the county. We're paying very clear attention to any anticipated or articulated expectations for savings plans in the next fiscal year. So again, all of these things operate in there. And then you add onto that all the things that we're having to think about as an organization as we think about new employees, as employees coming back, all the PPE, the plexiglass, all the things we're talking about, that costs money. So we have to be prepared about how all of these things work together. Yet we are coming up with new and innovative ways to respond. And maybe I'll end this section on enrollment by asking Dave to talk about a new initiative, Raptor Ready, that we're going to be launching.
Thank you, Dr. Pollard. Through a lot of coordination with the other divisions, we're able to launch for summer session 2 a program called Raptor Ready. That's going to be a program for recent high school graduates to be able to get a scholarship for a course and to get a computer voucher so that they have the technology they need to remote learn during summer session 2. And thanks to the Montgomery College Foundation, in addition to those 500, 50 students that are DACA students, Dreamer students, and international students will also be able to take advantage of this program where the foundation will provide their scholarship along with a computer for them.
That's exciting. So again, we are working hard. I was at a college council meeting early this week, and there was a whole lot of ideas going on about how to increase enrollment. So all of us plays a role in this. My sister, who is a banker, always tells me there are 2 things that can help you at the bottom line: increase revenue and decrease expenses. So both of those things have to exist in order for us to really see some significant changes there. Let me go to the next question. This is actually from Professor Harry Zarin. The condition of employment for the faculty has changed. We now need technology in our homes in order to be able to teach during the summer session 2 and the start of the fall semester. Will the college be conducting a technology assessment of what technology the faculty have at home, and then provide us with the technology that we need to teach our classes in a remote learning environment? So I want to thank you for the question. I think, as you know, the college has distributed several hundred devices to employees, both faculty and staff, as we prepared, as we went from the spring into the emergency remote teaching, learning, and advising. And then we're also, will be continuing to do so even in the program that Dave just mentioned a moment ago. And we are at this point relying on employees to speak to their supervisors to let them know if they have the need of technology that will help them do their work that they don't have right now. And that's being reviewed on a case-by-case basis with the resources that we have to respond. I'm not sure that a formal technology assessment is being planned for summer session, but I do know in the roadmap and then going into MC 2025, we have clearly articulated identifying a technology toolkit required to ensure productive remote work environments. So I say that we're moving in a direction to help us get a better understanding of that. But I'll also say, and I think this is an important message that all of us need to know, is that this is a pandemic. We have no control over this. In fact, if we had control over it, we may have done some things very differently, but we don't. This is an emergency situation, and this has been a temporary change. Our intent as an organization was to respond to a pandemic that came, and that pandemic asked us to do certain things, to take our teaching, learning, and remote, and to do that in ways that asked all of us to change very intentionally as quickly as we could. We know that our goal is to come back to a face-to-face environment, and we know that as a result of that, though the future of work is changing, training expectations are changing, the way we do our work will be changing. So as a result of that, how are we all adapting, including the technology needs, the training competencies, and our capacity to do that work is going to be evolving as well. So I hear the fact that there are needs. We're trying to respond to them to the best that we can. We're also trying to keep the budget and steward the resources and advocate and maintain the things that we have committed to, and hopefully we'll be able to provide in the next fiscal year. I'll give a couple of folks an opportunity to chime in on that, because I hope I hit the high points of that. Donna and Dr. Rai, Sanjay.
So regarding the technology, even before we went remote, just as we were preparing, we started learning very quickly of what some of the needs have been with technology, and work to get laptops to those individuals, working through their supervisors for them to move into required remote working. We constantly are looking at the technology deployed at Montgomery College, and we do have a very robust technology environment. But things are changing, and we've learned a lot through this required remote work experience. And we are bringing a group together to talk about what we have learned through this regarding the technology and what kind of adjustments we might need to make now, but importantly, moving into the future, because we know that this remote experience has changed us as how we work as an institution going forward.
Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Dr. Pollard. So I think that's an important question, especially from academic point of view. Faculty who are teaching remotely, we want to make sure that they have the best possible tools available to deliver instruction and meet student learning outcomes. As you said, this is a temporary change, and a lot of things were done on ad hoc basis and very quickly. But I have to admit that these things were done quite well. To give you example, some of our faculty who teach, more technical type of courses where advanced technology is needed. Um, there were classes of entire sections where we found out that students do not have access to what is called VDI, virtual desktop image, for faculty and students, so that they can access some software that are expensive and not part of Microsoft suites and things like that. In Dr. Mogren's class, 6 students needed that. And there are other sections too. I cannot thank David Sears enough. Within a couple of days, every student and faculty not only got the laptops, but they got the laptops with VDI. Just amazing work, IT and advancement both. Adobe Cloud, we made it temporarily available. Some classes cannot be taught without that. And now, CIO, the IT CIO told us just the other day that she has made that available for fall also. So there are lots of these types of things are being done to immediately respond to that situation. Very many thanks to Dave Sears and Foundation. But on the long term, I think this is an important question. Virtual campus is a very important part of MC 2025. And I think, our small scale work on virtual campus already started when we launched online degrees. We learned a lot through that process. You cannot come up with a plan on a piece of paper without experimenting things. So online classes, open education resources, 500 sections this spring out of 3,000 were taught in open education resources. Extended winter session, a perfect way to understand that if you have to teach remote, what are faculty needs and what are student needs. We created Blackboard shell for every single course. That was very helpful for remote instruction when faculty are teaching from home. How do you teach from home without learning management system? And not only that, our learning management system is one of the most updated learning management system. Every single update that's out there on Blackboard was done in a very timely manner. Then within that, video conferencing, Collaborate Ultra, which is a cloud-based video conferencing, that is part of our LMS system. Not only that, Zoom is also part of our LMS system. So with all that, and then we have provided training to faculty for the last several years on online pedagogy, LMS, Blackboard system, and then this summer, a comprehensive training has been planned, and several, at least about 300 faculty have already registered for those trainings. So technology is available, training is available, but as we move forward and launch a really unique and one of the best virtual campus in the country, we are looking at augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning, artificial intelligence, a lot of these online labs that we are hearing about. this involving virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and some of the emerging technologies. We have outstanding faculty with great credentials, and they are not only active internally, but they are active nationally in the development of these things. And we are engaging national experts in this process as well. So as we move forward, we will work more, and I think our roadmap for technology and how it intersects with academic vision of the college will become clearer.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the question, which I think is an interesting one as well, because I think it kind of even captures the last thing, not just one about technology, but also competency and about preparation and willingness to be flexible and agile in the workspace to do the work we need to do. And Colleen Golek asked this question: given the current situation, it seems as though some employees are overwhelmed with their workload and need to support students such as IT, the foundation, financial aid, and even faculty. Has the senior leadership team considered how we might cross-train employees to help alleviate the strain on some of our essential employees? I love this question because it speaks to, I think, some alignment about some things that are really happening. One of the things we just launched this week, HR STEM put out information on a talent share program in which some employees who might not have as much responsibility right now because of our remote work environment can pitch in their talents and get some exposure in other departments. I'm tremendously excited about this because I know that this is a reflection of a solution that MC is adapting to the environment, that we're taking opportunities to provide professional development opportunities, exposure, all the career laddering types of things that people are interested in. This fits into that mosaic of strategies that the institution can be deploying in that space. And I love it too, because it speaks to one of the guiding principles in our roadmap: practice the courageous transformation that this moment demands. All of us are going to be asked, or being asked, to think differently about how we do our work. And we were already starting these conversations internally. In fact, the Board of Trustees this past year dedicated the whole year in terms of their constituent conversations about the changing nature of work and the future of work. And I think this inspires me because this is courageous, and we took this moment in this pandemic to think about how do we ask people to try something different and to provide a structure for them to do that. I think we responded, and I think as a college we're becoming far more agile. It's not just that moniker anymore. We're actually demonstrating, we're showing our math, if I could say that, in terms of how we're going to be more agile. And I think it reminds me of that quote Rahm Emanuel says, you don't not letting a disaster go to waste. I think we're not letting this moment go to waste for us, because we're not really tethered, I think, to these traditional ways about how things have to be done. We're giving ourselves more creativity, more permission to think differently about this work. And I'd also offer that we have already been on this pathway. Our restructuring of academic affairs, the restructuring of student affairs, the way we have already moved on certain pathways regarding our IT work, the way that we are thinking about the delivery of professional development through Elite and others. I'll offer to you, because of that, I think as an organization, we are far better positioned in this space because we've had people taking advantage of it. And if you haven't been, here's a great time now. While you may have a different type of work you're doing, you may be able to take advantage of the plethora of professional development opportunities that are out there in our Elite area. I'm going to keep going because we've got about 2 or 3 more questions and about 10 minutes left, so I want to be responsive to time. And this is one I think is pretty important because I hear some folks may not be doing this. And it says, can I take my annual personal leave during this COVID-19 situation? Yes, you can. I encourage it. I wish I could demand it because we all need that. A couple weeks ago, I did it. I took a day, and it was a day for me to literally sit in my pajamas on my couch all day and read a book, not be in front of a computer, not talk to people. It was mental health, as well as just allowing me to regroup after what had been a pretty strenuous set of days. So you are welcome to take that leave. It is earned. It is yours. Even if you're staying home to do that, if you're driving, working in your garden, whatever it is you need to do, that's for you. I encourage you to do it. Mental health demands that we should do it. It is your leave, so please make sure you're doing that. Dave, I know you and I talked a little bit about this. I know you have some pretty passionate thoughts about that.
Yes, thank you. So I would say that the work's important, but work-life balance is paramount. So we all want to encourage everyone to take care of themselves, take care of their families in this pandemic time. And like Dr. Pollard said, is take an hour of leave, take 4 hours of leave, go find a way to step away from the remote teaching, the remote work, the remote learning, and find a way to just get some time to feel better emotionally, physically, mentally. And as Donna said, use the resources the college has. We have the FSAP program available to you if you're having troubles, but definitely please, we encourage our supervisors to encourage their staff to take leave, and staff and faculty administrators, please take time off and take care of yourselves.
Thank you. And we have a
Dr.
related.
Pollard?
Yeah, please.
Can I just, as someone who has not been a big teleworker through my career, moving into this remote situation made work become home and home become work. And so that was a real adjustment for me. So, taking leave is very important. And I would like to thank you, Dr. Pollard, for approving me for a week of annual leave the week after next. So if anyone wants to virtually join me, we'll figure out something fun to do.
Oh, please do. I think there's a great opportunity for virtual wine tastings. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, I perfected that.
I for that, and please, I encourage my team. They all know this. Take their leave. I ask them all the time, "You're taking your leave because you need to do it." And I think there's a question related to that. Wendy Maldonado asked, "Would MC consider increasing annual leave carryover limits or extending the deadline by which we can use annual leave? I know we can use annual leave now, but many may not be able to enjoy it by going anywhere. Is the COVID-19 situation considered an extenuating circumstance that would allow for carryover of excess annual leave hours in the next year?" So this is a topic we're just now starting to talk about. Actually, in fact, earlier this week, we spent quite a bit of time as a group thinking about this and talking about it. And we've really been so packed with priority issues that this has not been one that was at the top of the list. However, because we are listening, I heard that this is something that's important to understand and affects some other people more timely. We're trying to think about that. As I said, though, there are a lot of unknowns, so I don't have a decision on that yet, and I'm probably not prepared to make one at least another month or so. I want to remind folks that we are a part of a bigger ecosystem within our county, and in particular because we receive about half of our budget from the county, over half of our budget. We need to be very thoughtful about how things are playing themselves out within the county and how those resources may or may not be flowing as a result of this pandemic that we're in. The college has also had some expenses associated with it that we have to think about as it relates to this. Whether it be leave carryover, that is something that we have to book. It is an expense, even though you may not know that. It is an expense that the college has to have. We also know that essential pay, as a college, even though we did not have to do that, we provided employees who were able to had to come on campus and work for a period of time. We provided them with some additional pay and now have moved into, a special shift pay. But before that, we were paying at a higher rate because we recognized and valued the work they were doing. As we think about additional PPE, additional cleaning that has to be done, we think about rotations around plexiglass and all the other types of things we're thinking about. Those are expenses that we have to figure out how we plan for as an organization. And as a result of that, leave carryover is an expense that has to be placed within the context of all the other expenses. So it is not that I do not value the fact that you are working and are unable to travel. I am in the same situation. All of us in the same situation. I still want you to take your leave. We're trying to figure out some different mechanisms of what that might look like, but I'm not able to give you an answer, Wendy, on that right now. And certainly as a result of this broader context we're in, it's going to take me a little time to figure out if that's something the college can do. I don't know, Donna or anybody, if anybody all want to chime in on that. Okay. I'll take the hit on that one. And then last, let me go to this last question. Carl Smith asks, will we be able to access our offices on a regular basis in the summer or fall? I have accumulated books, handouts, maps, and files for classes that are in my office. In addition, there are resources in the office like having 2 computer monitors, a printer, and a copier, none of which I have at home. Limited space at home makes it more cumbersome and difficult to work here. I estimate the time I need for grading and completing tasks has increased by 15 to 20%. So Carl, we're doing some planning around that right now. You should work with your supervisor to come in on campus to get the materials, not the printers or the monitors, but your materials that you have, because we know that the work environment is changing right now. We're all working on that. In fact, as I said earlier, even in this conversation, I feel that I'm working differently and probably more than I have in some ways, in some spaces, and I'm adapting in others where I'm able to do things a little bit more effectively and efficiently. So I can appreciate what you're talking about in that space. There are, if you contact your provost or your department chair and provost, you'll be able to, a dean, be able to get in to get the materials that you need to do for your work. And we're very thoughtful about that as well. Donna, anything you want to speak to that?
No, Dr. Pollard, I think that's exactly what we want the employees to do.
So anything else that you all would add to any of those things that we just talked about? So there were a number of questions that came in. We have that are going in on the FAQ list right now about face coverings. We'll be providing those. We're looking at plexiglass types of things. We're making decisions about cafeteria and open spaces, how those might work. That all depends as well based on guidance received from county and state and federal health organizations. We're continuing to do direct outreach and building up our recruitment strategies. Our marketing team has been doing outstanding work in this. Our high school work team has been doing great work in doing that particular engagement. And we're looking very deliberately at the budget. A lot of questions of folks are asking about furloughs, about layoffs, about hiring freezes. Right now, we have done a hiring slowdown, and that's actually modeling what we're seeing at the county level because we want to be very thoughtful that the people we hire are people that we can continue to keep. We want to hire somebody and then have to lay them off. So that's a very important thing that we're working on. We're also being thoughtful about advocating for our budget. That's important for us as well over the next several weeks. Even as the county has done its straw vote, the county council, we know that they will be doing its more long-term vote, and they've already indicated they will be revisiting the budget in July. So we are monitoring that very thoughtfully. All in all, I need to tell you that we are strong. We are well positioned as an organization. Some of the hard work that we've been doing over the last several years have put us in a better stead than we would have even imagined, and certainly better than some of our colleagues across the nation. Our work and reorganization to help us be more efficient and effective, our focus on metrics, our focus on student success outcomes, the work we've been doing around our schedule, the work that we're doing right now in terms of outreach and direct student immersion into the organization, the way that we worked deliberately over the last 5 years around our finances. All of this has allowed us to be very strategic right now in this moment and to have options. When I was talking not too long ago with Liz Greeny, she said, we were talking about the finances of the college. She said, we are strong and we have good options in front of us. When I talk to our academic leaders, we are well prepared for where we need to be. When I talk to our student affairs folks, they're working deliberately about how students come into the organization, how they experience it, how they support that. We've been on that work and know where we are trying to become stronger as an organization. When I think about the way in which you're outreaching to our community and building our philanthropic connections and being very deliberate about focusing our messaging and what we need, we are well positioned. So I want to thank you all for everything you asked. I hope that we've responded to much of it. Where we have not seen responses, please go to Resilient NC, look at the FAQs. Let us know if there's more information that we need to be providing. I have a sneaking suspicion we'll be doing another one of these in the near future because I believe it to be very successful. And I'm grateful Thank you to my colleagues for joining me. You all are some of the best professionals that I have the privilege of working with. So thank you all so much for everything you do. And with that, we will sign off. Be well, everyone.